Hello everyone, welcome back to another LPU Teardown video. This is an alloy padlock 340 with a PROTEC 2 locking cylinder. I'm going to be tearing this down and showing you what's inside. So with most alloy padlocks, they are bottom loading. So what you do is that you take out this set screw. Padlock is open, and you need to use a let me see, 2.5 millimeter X wrench to remove this set screw. It's right here. I'm gonna put that there. Lock this back up, and now we can screw out this little bottom cap. Alloy is really smart and makes these bottom caps screw on so that you cannot use any pulling instruments to get the lock open. Under here we find our first layer of security. This is just a steel spinner. It has nothing to do with picking. And then we get to the interesting part. This is the everybody is looking for, the PROTEC 2, and this is a sidebar, by the way. And you'll note that the sidebar has a little ledge here. And what that does is that when it's locked in here, you simply cannot take. Hold on, I'm just going to get these ball bearings out. Oh yeah, there's a spring here as well. The spring just locks in here so that the cylinder doesn't flop around. That's just a shackle. And that's another 10 millimeter ball bearing. What this L thing here does is that when the lock is in here, there's going to be a cap on top of it. What you can do is that you can, this is centered by the way, what you can do if the sidebar didn't have that little L shape is that you could drill a hole right through here with like a carbide bit or something, and then you could get the sidebar to drop out. This L thing here makes it so that it's still catching on here. So even if you have that hole and you could get in some pliers here, you cannot pull out this sidebar because it's stuck, as you can see. So that's a really cool security feature. I'm gonna put that there. And this little ring here is just to limit the core rotation. I'm not going to take that off right now. But here's the interesting part, as you can see. This is the PROTEC 2. As you can see, it's a very small package. And when you put in the key here, as you can see, let me show you that here. See this thing here? If I just try turning this, it will not turn. But when I insert the key, as you can see that little thing there, as you can see that gets pushed out just a little bit, and that allows the this controller to operate. So very cool. When you insert this key here, as you can see, all the discs line up. Very nice. So let's go and get to getting this thing here. There's a couple of ways on how to do it. The first thing here is to pry these things apart. That was the first thing I did, and I do not recommend it for anybody. Rather, I recommend doing it like this. You need to push in that button here that corresponds to this control thing here, just like as if the key was inserted, and then you go in and turn it a little bit. What you can do now is that you can try to shove your fingernail on here or something. And you can go in and push this thing here in, try to pull it out a little bit. Now it's out, as you can see. It's out here now. Be very careful while doing this. Put your finger right under, then you go in and cover the two ball bearings that's inside of here. I'm going to drop them down here. These are spring-loaded ball bearings, and as you can see, they are very light and will fly very far if you allow them to. The next thing inside of the disc controller is the spring here. So you can see. Let me just get that out. That doesn't work. Here, this is a spring. And this corresponds to this ball bearing stack, which has another 2.4 millimeter ball bearing. And this other part here is this little cap thingy. This has a spring in it. This has a spring in it. And it also has this thing here. So, and here's the disc controller, by the way. Something cool with alloys is that there are multiple profiles on the disc controller. You can see the profile right here. This one here is a 7 set. This goes in here very nicely. This is one of the most common ones, though there are some that are very tight. So the key fits in like that, and then you can rotate all discs. I'm gonna put that right there. Now we get onto this thing here. This is just a cap. So you can see it does not go in and out, but you can just slide it out like that. So you can see here's the cap. That's where the ball bearings go. And you can see a little bit of profiling inside of here that makes for the interactive elements. The way that it works is that this stack pushes this ball bearing here onto this ball bearing here, which then in turn pushes this thing here and then allows it to work. So very cool concept. The next thing in the PROTEC 2 that you'll note are these things here. These are called return bars. I'll show you them working right now. Okay, I have the key inserted, and when I turn the key, so you can see, they go ahead and stack up like that and limit the disc rotation. These are also, as you can see, there are some serrations here on the back of this thing, and these lock into these serrations right here and cause the discs to bind when applied tension on. So I'm going to do that right now. Now the lock is tensioned, and the disc blocking system locks all the discs, so it's really cool. But if I go and insert the key here, as you can see, the discs line up both here and both there. That's because this locker is used, this exact same package is used in homes for deadbolts, and this is to lock the deadbolt, and this is to retract the deadbolt. So it works in both rotations, essentially. Okay, I'm just going to get this out here now. Let's go on and get this disc stumped out. And I will talk a little bit about the discs. This is a standard disc, and this is a spacer. See, we all know all disassembly locks must have spacers. Another standard disc. This is also just another spacer. We have another standard disc. Now I have a steel spacer. When you get to the steel spacers, you will find one of these discs here. And these discs here correctly correspond with the disc controller. So you can see when I turn the disc controller, this thing here is on the disc controller. So this will be turned with the disc controller, and that is mainly for smooth operation. So this is a disc you don't need to pick. It also corresponds with both of the return bars, making it so that when you turn the disc controller, the DBS system gets tripped. So both the return bars and probably for smooth operation. Another steel spacer, of course, and then we have another standard disc, and this thing here, spacer, standard disc, spacer again, standard disc. We're gonna have a lot of standard discs before we get something interesting again. Spacer again, disc, spacer again, another disc. Now we have a steel spacer. This is another exception. This steel spacer is actually engaging this disc here. And this disc only has one gate on it. That means that it will never get rotated. But it's encased in a double steel spacers, probably to make it even more slippery, so that nothing turns the disc. Because if that disc turns any bit, the lock will not open. Now I can take out the return bars, and I'm going to put them right here. These are just some pieces of metal, appear to be 1.5 millimeters in diameter. I can probably measure them. Now we have another one of these things there. These directly correspond with the disk controller, which is this thing, and will always be turned 90 degrees. Now we have the last disk, which is this thing here. This interferes with the key tip. Let's see if I can show you here. Interferes with the key tip, like this. And it's also turned 90 degrees, and this is one of the things that drives the lock. With the disk control, of course. That thing also drives the lock. Inside of here you will see a little piece of metal. Let's see if I can get it out of here. This little piece of metal center aligns the disk controller. You can see it just fits in there. Center aligns the disk controller and makes it so that it doesn't wobble around like that. You can see here the rough shape of a spacer inside of here. And there's nothing more to show in this thing. Here we have, of course, the groove that the sidebar falls in. We have the these things here for the return bars. There we have a sidebar. Then we have a spring, 2 ball bearings, anti-drill cap, small set screw, and the cap for the padlock, a disc controller, the cap that holds the disc controller. We have a small little piece here, with a spring and a ball bearing. We have a spring and 2 ball bearings. We have both of the return bars. We have a total of 12 discs. And this little thing here, which I won't count as a disc. Then we have spacers all in between them, and we have special steel spacers for discs like that and like that. Thank you very much for watching this video, and yeah, have a nice day.